Alright everyone, welcome back to another Commander deck tech video. This time we're going to be exploring the newer set, Strixhaven School of Mages, and here we have one of the Elder Dragons that apparently one of the houses is named after. So if you're not familiar yet, this set is kind of like Harry Potter where you have one name representing each house. So there is a Silverquill house, kind of like there was a Gryffindor and a Slytherin. But this creature right here is really cool. It's Shadrix Silverquill, so 5 mana, white and black, for a 2/5 flying double strike legendary Elder Dragon. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player, so you get 3 different modes here. The first one is target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. That's pretty cool. It kind of goes along with the whole quill thing. You have a pen and you have ink, that's pretty clever. And you have target player draws a card and loses a life. And then you have target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. Now since you choose 2, and each of those modes will have to target different players, this is perfect for group hug. Anytime you are forced to benefit an opponent, you might as well just lean into that strategy. So we have a few different categories here that make up the majority of the deck, all kind of looking to stay in line with that group hug theme. So the first one we have here is draw. We want card draw in here that is going to allow our opponents to draw cards too. We want to be the friend at the table. Playing Shadrix Silverquill, we want to be the cool kids here. We want people to do us favors too. So by playing Howling Mine, each player is going to draw an extra card at their draw step. And then we have Temporary Truce. You get these Truce cards here. There are a couple Truces. There's another one here as well. Each player may draw up to 2 cards. For each card less than 2 any player draws, that player gains 2 life. So for some reason, if you don't want to draw 2 cards, if you really need the life, you can just gain 4 life straight up, or you could just draw a card and gain 2 life. But most people are likely going to draw 2 cards. We have Horn of Greed. Whenever a player plays a land, that player draws a card. We have Howling Golem, kind of like Howling Mine, but it's on a creature. When it attacks or blocks, each player draws a card. So it's a little bit of extra card draw via a creature. And then we have Pain's Reward. This is a really fun one because it's kind of like Group Hug, but it does what black does best. It absolutely torments and punishes your opponents. You bid any amount of life. In turn order, each player may top the high bid. The bidding ends if the high bid stands, and the high bidder loses life equal to the high bid, and then draws 4 cards, so everyone's pretty much losing life to figure out. Are 4 cards really worth losing a lot of life? It depends. And then we have Pendant of Prosperity. This is a cool artifact. It enters under an opponent's control. They can pay 2 and tap it to draw a card, and then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Pendant of Prosperity's owner also draws a card, and then that player may put a land card from their hand onto the battlefield. So it's really up to them whether or not they benefit from it, whether you benefit from it as well. That's kind of the whole point of Group Hug, is that you want to make friends. Then we have Temple Bell. Just tap it so that each player gets to draw a card. I personally prefer this over something like Howling Mine because it gives you the choice of when exactly you want to draw a card. Then we have Truce. This is an instant speed version of Temporary Truce. So each player may draw up to 2 cards. For each card less than 2 any player draws, that player gains 2 life. Then we have Alhamerit's Archive. The first not really Group Hug card in the deck, but it doesn't really hurt our opponents. It doesn't really make us a target. You know, it's not super crazy though. It doesn't give you double the card draw from your first draw, but we can take advantage of both of those with our commander and a lot of cards that we have in here. Then we have Saison, Perverter of Truth. This is really kind of Black's Group Hug. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and then draws 2 cards. So it was either this or Font of Mythos. I think this is better personally. You really get the flavor of playing a black-white Group Hug deck by doing it this way. And then we have some Pillow Fort cards in here. Pillow Fort is not really Group Hug, but it's kind of out of necessity what you lean on just to stay alive and survive. You don't really have the best creatures, you don't really have the best removal, answers, responses, so you want to stay alive. We have Island Sanctuary. You can draw 1 less card during your draw phase, and if you do, until the start of your next turn, the only creatures that can attack you are ones with Flying or Island Walk. So for only 2 mana, this is fantastic. Our commander can provide us with the card draw to make up for it. We have Wall of Shards. This is also really cool. It has a Group Hug tie-in because cumulative upkeep, an opponent gains 1 life. So that cumulative upkeep is going to keep adding up, and an opponent is going to gain even more life. But that's fine. We have 8 toughness defending flying for us. We have Orzhov Advocist, kind of the same idea. At the beginning of our upkeep, each player may put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. If that player does, creatures that player controls can't attack you or a planeswalker you control until your next turn, so really kind of lets you know who's your enemy. I think most people go for the counters. Then we have Teferi's Protection, just really to protect your board. It's really like the one really good card that we have in here, but your opponents are probably not going to expect it. We have Baird, Steward of Argive. Creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 mana for each of those creatures. Then we have Koskun Falls. This is basically like a Ghostly Prison. In fact, now that I think about it, I might as well just add a Ghostly Prison in here. It kind of slipped my mind. And we're back, so I just took out a card I didn't show you yet, one I thought was worth substituting. So here we have Ghostly Prison, just another good fort card, in addition to the Koskun Fall, so they will make it so that a creature can't attack you unless their controller pays an additional 2 mana. Koskun Falls makes it so that you have to tap a creature during your upkeep or you have to sacrifice it. We have Winborn Muse, kind of the same exact thing but on a creature. And then we have Norn's Annex. Creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker they control unless their controller pays white mana or 2 life for each of those creatures. Then we have Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. This is a really underrated pillow fort card. Vigilance and protection from creatures, and whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, destroy that creature. Put a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And then we have Blazing Archon, so creatures just can't attack you, period. Well worth the 9 mana. And then we have really just generic hug cards. I probably could have broken this down into different categories as well, but we have 18 more cards here that kind of fall in line with the group hug theme. So Alliance of Arms is one of those joined forces cards from the original Commander set. Starting with you, each player may pay any amount of mana, and then each player puts X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the total amount of mana paid this way. This card's really cool because our Silverquill will put +1/+1 counters on all of our creatures if we want them to. Then we have Scheming Symmetry. Really sweet card. Definitely one of the most underrated tutors. You choose 2 target players, each of them searches their library for a card, and then shuffles their libraries, and then they put those cards on top of it. So it's really cool. It doesn't have to be you, by the way. If you're playing in a game where one player is about to go off and they have a crazy board, if you don't have the best cards to deal with it, just choose 2 other opponents. And then we have Devi Sentry. This is really funny. It's just a good blocker. I mean, that's all it really is in the deck for. You pay 1 mana and regenerate it, so target opponent may draw a card. Really just a great way to make friends. If you have the mana to spare, then you can regenerate it easily and offer that card draw to someone. Then we have Oath of Ghouls. This card is really sweet in addition to Oath of Lieges here. But during each player's upkeep, if there are more creature cards in that player's graveyard than a target opponent's graveyard, the player may return a creature card from his or her graveyard to their hand. So it really rewards who's been beaten up during the game, and that's what I like about these Oath cards. And then we have Oath of Lieges. During each player's upkeep, if that player controls fewer lands than target opponent, that player may search their library for a basic land card and put it into play. That's it, it puts it right into play. That's so sweet. I mean, both of those cards, Oath of Ghouls and Oath of Lieges, really made me want to make this a group hug deck. I think those 2 cards are fantastic. You're going to make a lot of friends. Then we have Wishclaw Talisman, another card that's going to make you a lot of friends, kind of like Scheming Symmetry. You can use it to tutor, and then you give it to an opponent so then they can tutor. And hopefully they give it back to you after they're done tutoring. And then we have Brina the Demagogue, another newer card. Believe it or not, there's only like 3 new cards in this deck, but whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card and you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, which is really nice since our commander has double strike. Then we have a really sweet card here, Endbringer's Revel. Just a 3 mana enchantment that sits on the field. Anyone can pay 4 mana. Anyone can use this ability at sorcery speed to return target creature card from a graveyard to its owner's hand. And then we have Akruin Horse. It enters the battlefield and then an opponent takes control of it. At the beginning of their upkeep, each opponent creates a 1/1 white soldier creature token. And then we have some more cards. We have a ton of these. We have Benevolent Offering. I love these offering cards from Commander 2014. You choose an opponent. You and that player each put 3 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield, and then you choose an opponent. It could be the same one. You gain 2 life for each creature you control, and that player gains 2 life for each creature they control as well. We have a sweet card here in Ill-Gotten Gains. You exile it, but it does something pretty good. Each player discards their hand, and then they return 3 cards from their graveyard to their hand. So that's everybody. You can return your 3 best cards from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty much what this card is here to do. Then we have Rankle, Master of Pranks. So really the group hug ability here is to have each player lose a life and draw a card. And then we have Infernal Offering. You choose an opponent, you and that player each sacrifices a creature, and then each player who sacrificed a creature this way draws 2 cards. And then you choose an opponent, it could be the same one again. Return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. then that opponent also does the same thing. And then we have Tempt with Immortality, a tempting offer card from Commander 2013. Return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Each opponent may return a creature card from their graveyard to the battlefield, and for each player who does, you get to return another creature card from your graveyard to your battlefield. So there's a lot of cool things you can do here. Then we have Dawnbreak Reclaimer. At the beginning of your end step, you choose a creature card in an opponent's graveyard. Then that player chooses a creature card in your graveyard. You may return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. It's also cool because this is a may, so you can decide not to if they choose wrong. So they really have to be nice to you. I mean, if you're going to be doing them a favor, they should give you your best creature too. Then we have Infernal Genesis. This is a really nasty card with that Ron Spencer artwork. 6 mana enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard, and then they get X 1/1 black minion creature tokens, where X is that card's converted mana cost. So that's really sweet. Just offers everybody some minion tokens. Then we have Arbiter of Nullridge. These are the ones that are kind of group hug, but they're really just meme cards. They're just in it for the memes. When it enters the battlefield, each player's life total becomes the highest life total among all players. So, this could make the game so much longer, especially if you're able to bring it back into play. And then we have Reverse the Sands. So you get to redistribute any number of players' life totals. This card is ridiculous. Kind of the same thing, it can make the game so much longer, but it's really just meant to even the playing field with whoever has the most life. In our lands, we have some lands in here that are for utility reasons, but most of it's going to be for mana fixing. We got a newer one here in Bright Climb Pathway. It also pretty much transforms into a land that can tap for black. We have Caves of Koilos. You have Command Tower, Fetid Heath, Field of Ruin. This is also pretty good because it doubles as removal. So we destroy a target non-basic land an opponent controls, and then each player searches their library for a basic land card and puts it into play. So it's kind of like, hey, I know I just got rid of your Cabal Coffers or your Gaia's Cradle. But yeah, everybody's gonna get a land, so don't take it too personally. And then we have Forbidden Orchard, kind of the same deal. It's a group hug land. Whenever we tap it, target opponent creates a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. Then we've Godless Shrine, Isolated Chapel, Maze of Ith, just to kind of add to the fort theme here. And then we have Mikokoro, Center of the Sea, another group hug card draw card. We pay 2 mana and tap it so that each player draws a card. We have Orzhov Basilica, 12 Plains, Reliquary Tower, because we do have quite a bit of card draw. We have Scoured Barrens. We have Shine Shadow Snarl, a new land. And then we have Swamps. We have 7 of them. We have Tainted Field, Temple of Silence, Temple of the False Gods, since card draw is no problem, and this is a rather slower deck. We have Vault of the Archangel to kind of come out of nowhere and really stick it to our opponents if they think we can't do anything in combat. Well, give our Silverquill Death Touch and Lifelink. We're going to gain some life back, we're going to be more threatening in combat. And then we have some mana here. Mana is always good in group hug. We have Soul Ring, we have Wayfarer's Bauble. Just to get some mana here quickly, we have Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Orzhov Signet, Talisman of Hierarchy, and then we have Spectral Searchlight. So we choose a player and that player adds 1 mana of any color that they choose. So you can make deals here. Of course, you don't have to, it can just be used for your mana. Then we have Victory Chimes that untaps during each other player's untap step, and it taps so that a player of your choice adds 1 colorless mana. And then we have Smothering Tithe because it's not group hug, but it's just good for mana. If we're giving card draw to an opponent, hopefully they let us have some treasure tokens. And then we have Solemn Simulacrum. I think Solemn Simulacrum just belongs in any deck that's not really meant to be competitive. If it's casual, why not just throw in a Solemn Simulacrum? And then we have a few protection cards in here. We have Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, and Wishmonger. Wishmonger's a funny one. Any player can pay 2 mana, so that target creature gains protection from the color of its controller's choice until end of turn. This one's going to get out of hand too, so we have a lot of these cards where any player can just activate the ability. So I think that's really going to be fun in a multiplayer game. Then we have, of course, we have Removal, which is about the least group hug thing, but hopefully they don't take it too personally. We have Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshare, so you don't get your creature anymore, but you get a land or you get some life. Generous Gift, they get a 3/3 green elephant if they have their permanent destroyed. We have Oblation. This one's probably one that they really want to have happen. So they lose their non-land permanent, but they get to draw 2 cards. They have to shuffle it back in. And we have Wrath of God, of course. We have Magister of Worth, which this isn't even so much group hug, it's just more of a political card. I think it's always nice though if you're on everyone's good side. You can really influence what they choose. So Grace or Condemnation, each player votes for that. If Grace gets more votes, each player returns each creature card from their graveyard to the battlefield, which most of the time that doesn't happen. If Condemnation gets more votes or the vote is tied, destroy all creatures other than Magister of Worth. So you'll be left with a 4/4 flyer. And then we have Merciless Eviction, of course, just to give us the best possible removal. We can exile any of one card type. And then we have Play of the Game. This one here I probably wouldn't play if it wasn't Group Hug, but since it has Assist, it means that any other player can pay up to 6 of this spell's cost, so they can pay for the generic mana. That way you can pay for the minimum and still end up exiling all non-land permanents. And then we have some win cards in here, just ways of winning. We have Debt to the Deathless and Approach of the Second Sun, just because we need some way of winning in here, I suppose, and I think these two are pretty decent ways of doing that, while not being too unfair. So anyway, let me know what you think about this Group Hug deck. I think Shadrix Silverquill is actually a lot of fun. You get that cool looking artwork there. Black and white isn't the first thing that comes to your mind when you're thinking about Group Hug. And if you know anything about me, white and black, that's my favorite color combination in the whole game. So I'm always willing to try something new in my favorite colors. So if you like the video, subscribe, like, comment, share, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Void here signing off. The link to the deck will be in the description below.